Hi guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel, Roam with Rach. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how I plan for solo trips. These steps can be applicable to like any trip that you're going on. However, I think it'll be especially applicable to people who are solo traveling for months at a time, like I do. If you don't know who I am, my name is Rachel and I make videos on travel, fashion, overall lifestyle content, just inspiring people to live their best life. So if any of that sounds good to you, consider subscribing to my channel. This video is kind of going to be like a checklist video outlining everything you need to do from like documentation to packing tips to just overall getting your life together before you leave the country. I'm kind of going to give like a time breakdown because you can't do everything like 2 days before your trip, and you also can't do everything like months before your trip. The first checklist I like to call the planning stages. So depending on your, I don't know, level of type A-ness, I'm pretty type A, but depending on how early in advance you like to plan, I would say at least a couple months in advance, but everyone is different. But whenever you're in the planning stages, whatever that is, there are two things that I like to do. The first thing is making sure that I don't need a visa or any travel documentation to enter into the country. And if I do need a visa, figuring that out early so that I can apply if needed and then time out how many days I'm going to be in that country. That can greatly affect how long your stay is going to be, but also timing wise, sometimes it takes countries like a couple weeks to a month to 2 months to get back to you with your visa. Oftentimes you're able to just fly into the country and get a visa upon arrival, but sometimes countries like Vietnam, for example, you need a visa before you get there. So just making sure that you're always checking before you actually book anything for your trip. Along with that, I also like to check with my local travel clinic about vaccines that I need. I want to make sure that I'm getting vaccinated with enough time. If you're going somewhere like Southeast Asia, you need to make sure that you're getting those vaccines way ahead of time because some of them can interfere with others. Some of them you need to take a certain amount of time before you leave. XYZ, let it sink into your system but not interact with anything else. Honestly, if I were you and I was going to Southeast Asia, which I know a lot of people who watch my content are planning Southeast Asia trips, I would make sure that I was going to my health clinic at least like 6 months before I go on my backpacking trip. If it's too late for you and you're watching this video, do not freak out, but definitely go see your healthcare provider as soon as you can. I also just want to mention I made a whole video about how to plan a trip where I kind of break down the more specifics of the planning process. In this video, I talk about how to find accommodation, transportation, how to make a Google Docs so that everything is there for you. So if that's something you'd be into, I will link the video so you can go watch it. Okay, now that you're out of the planning stages, now let's say you're about 1 month before you're leaving for your trip. This is the 1 month checklist. The first thing is to get travel insurance. So I like to make sure I do this a month before I leave so that I know I've had time to look and see what options are the best for me. Travel insurance is something that's necessary. You never know what's going to happen on your trip, and it's always better to be prepared than to have to pay a lot of money. You already pay so much money to go on a trip, so it just feels so much better when you know that you have protection. Even something really minuscule, like when I was in Vietnam, I got bronchitis and I could not stop coughing and I needed to go to the hospital eventually. That's not really somewhere you want to like cut costs because it could cost you way more in the long run. And also, as your travel big sister, I would say do not go on motorcycles if you're in Southeast Asia. It's not safe, okay? Just get a Grab, just get a local to drive you around on a motorcycle. It's just as fun, okay? Do not try to drive one yourself. The next thing that I like to do about a month before I leave is to make sure that I am freezing or stopping any subscriptions that I'm not going to be using while I'm gone. So think your cell phone plan, your gym membership, that sort of thing. I like to go through my bills and make sure that if I'm able to freeze something and it's more advantageous for me, and I want to do that, right? Along with this, I also like to notify my bank that I'm going to be traveling. This is just so that I don't get any freezes on my credit card. The next thing I do is I like to plan what I'm going to pack. At this stage, I would want to be like watching YouTube videos of people who've been to the places I've been. Watch my YouTube video because I've backpacked a lot of places in Europe and Central America and Southeast Asia. So you can watch, I'll link my packing playlist so you can go see. But I am very thorough with my packing process. So at the 1 month mark, I would be making a list of the things that I definitely need to bring. I'd be setting aside clothes that I don't use every single day in like a pile in my bedroom. So I have an idea of what I'm looking to pack when I'm ready to pack. If you travel a lot like I do, you don't have a lot of things that you need to buy, like packing cubes and, you know, travel containers for your toiletries and stuff like that. But if you were going on your first big backpacking trip, this is when I would want to be watching those videos, doing that research, and then buying what I need to buy so that I'm able to hold my stuff in an efficient way. Around the 1 month mark, I don't pack any of my clothing or my toiletries, but I do pack my personal item bag. This is just like gathering the comforts that I need for traveling. So like earplugs, sleeping mask, like my Kindle, lip balm, that sort of thing. I like to set aside in my personal item bag. And then, for example, if it's something that I use every single day, like my Kindle because I love to read, then I make a little list on my phone for my different bags. So I'd be like personal item bag, colon, Kindle, and then like a little checklist. So that way later on in my packing process, when I'm close to leaving, then I can just make sure I check everything off and I don't forget anything. But I definitely like to put everything in my personal item bag and just see how it fits, see how heavy it is, and then do some minimizing from there. Like, do I really need this? Do I really need this? And only pack the things that I absolutely cannot live without. Because I say this a lot in all my videos, but it's true. You want the most minimal amount of things when you're traveling. Because when your shoulders are heavy and you're tired and you're trucking through the airport or to a bus stop, you're gonna thank me. You're gonna be like, thank goodness I minimized, like Rachel did. Also at this point, when I'm packing my personal item bag, I like to make sure that my passport is in that bag. That way I just, I know it's there. I don't have to worry about it later on. And it's not something last minute, like I get to the airport and I don't have my passport. Absolutely not. Not me. That's a rookie mistake. We don't make rookie mistakes here, okay? Now, at about 2 weeks before my trip, I like to do a practice pack of my toiletries. So I actually like to put all my toiletries in my toiletry bag and then put it on my bathroom counter and live out of my toiletry bag for a couple weeks and just see, because this way when I'm living out of just the toiletry bag, I know, oh, I actually forgot this. I need to add this in there. Or, oh, I didn't really use this. I don't need that anymore. And then that way you're making sure when you get to the place that you're going, that you're not like, oh shoot, I forgot all this important stuff because I wasn't actually living out of my toiletry bag. I just packed it at the last minute. I find the more I travel, the less I need to do it. But again, if you're in like beginning stages and this is your first big solo backpacking trip where you're gonna be gone for a very, very long time, you do not wanna forget like your favorite skincare product or like something that you need for your hair or like deodorant. At this point as well, I like to put air tags on the things that I want to put air tags on. For me right now, mainly, I just put an air tag in like my big bag. Okay, we are now 1 week out. 1 week out from our big trip, okay? I'm sure you're getting excited, maybe a little nervous. At this point, I like to go to my local currency exchange place and make sure that I take out cash that I need. I like to do it at the 1 week mark just because at that point I'll have more of an idea through my research and planning of how much money I'm going to need in that specific location. And to be honest, even places that are mainly like card countries, like I would say like Sweden and Denmark most notably, that I just went on this spring, a lot of places did not even accept cash. Still, I always like to have some cash on me. I think having cash on you is crucial because at the end of the day, you can always like give someone cash if it's a place that they can only take card, right? But you can't really do the opposite. You can't really like pay card at a place that doesn't accept card, right? Cash is king. Always having just a little bit on hand, not too much because you don't want anyone to pickpocket you and take all your life savings, but just having some cash on hand. I always like to have a little bit because you never know when you're gonna be like in the middle of nowhere. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about when I was on this like little island in Cambodia about how hard it was to take money out from the ATM. It was like so stupidly expensive. Just if I had cash on me, it would have been so much more helpful. At the 1 week point, I also like to plan out my ride to the airport at this point. So whether I'm gonna take the train in, I'm gonna ask a friend. And then I also like to send whoever's driving me my flight information. I like to look up what terminal my airline's at so I know what terminal I'm driving into. I typically fly out of like Toronto Pearson, and so different airlines are at different terminals, and if you drive the wrong way, it's really annoying. So knowing what terminal you're at, knowing what time your flight is, knowing what time you want them to pick you up so that you have ample time to get to the airport in a comfortable, relaxing, calm fashion. That is what I like to do around the 1 week point. I also like to give myself a bit of extra time on that travel day to make things less stressful. That way, if my ride is late picking me up, no stress. Love you. If I'm a little late getting to the train, no stress. It's gonna be okay. I like to do this on all my travel days, but especially that one big travel day when you're originally flying out and into that new place, you just want the least amount of stress possible. At the 1 week point is also where I pack for real. So I'm actually making sure that the clothes that I want to wear are clean and they're in my packing cubes, in my bag, everything is organized. Like, this is when I do my for real pack. At this point, I also like to check the weather, because sometimes when I'm checking the weather and it's like months before my planning stages, I don't know how it's going to be like in real time right now. If you're going on a short trip, this is really helpful because you can probably look ahead like the next week what the weather is going to look like. But if you're going on a long trip, just making sure that you're checking the weather for when you're going to be in that country, and then just checking the weather for specific cities. I always fall into this issue of certain cities that I go to being a little colder than I thought they would be, and that's just because I made a grand assumption about the country being warm. Like, for example, you would think all of Guatemala would be super warm. Nope. Not always. Some places are going to be a little bit chillier at night, especially if you're traveling there in January, February. So, silly me. And if you knew that already, then never mind. But I just thought Guatemala was hot everywhere, okay? At the 1 week stage, I also like to share my itinerary with my friends and family so that they know where I am and they know if something's wrong, if I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Okay, and now we're at the stage where we're like 1 to 2 days away from our trip. At this point, I like to make sure that if I haven't gotten my travel documents together yet, that I do that. Maybe you got your travel insurance like I told you at the 1 month mark. Now would be the time to print out your travel insurance so that you have a physical copy of it. Save it on your phone as in the favorites folder, right? Doing stuff like that. Get all of your documents together, visas, vaccination proof, everything that you will need to travel. Make sure that's together, organized in a nice folder and somewhere that it's gonna stay flat in your backpack. I also like to put them in like one of those clear sleeves so that I know that it's not gonna get wet or ruined or faded with the weather or whatever rugged conditions it could come in contact with on my backpacking trip. At around 1 to 2 days before, I also like to make sure that I clean my house and clean out my fridge. This is so that when I come home, I know that everything is gonna be like clean and nice for me and I won't be stressed out after returning from a long trip. And then also just so that nothing goes bad in your fridge and it's gonna stink up your whole apartment and you're gonna come home and it's gonna be really gross. At the 1 to 2 days before, I also like to plan out my travel day outfit if I haven't already during my packing stages. I like to make sure that I know exactly what I'm gonna wear and that it's clean and that it's comfortable and that it's ready to go. All right, it is now the day of your trip. I'm sure you're excited, I'm sure you're nervous, I'm sure you're feeling all the feelings. Hopefully with all my planning already, you haven't felt super stressed because I like to keep the day of travel checklist pretty short. The first thing I wanna do is turn on my location services. So I like to share my location with, again, close personal friends and family. I wanna make sure that I'm leaving an extra house key for someone. So it's typically the person who drives me to the airport. I leave an extra house key with them. This is just so anything goes wrong in your apartment or your house, that you have someone who can come and get in easily. I also like to make sure that I am downloading TV shows or movies that I wanna watch. And then obviously, if you travel a lot, you know what I'm about to say, but check in for your flight online. This just saves you a lot of time at the airport, and especially if you travel with carry-on only, then you're ready to rock. You can just walk in to security because you've already got your flight ticket and you're ready to go. And with that, if you follow this checklist, you will be very much ready to have the best trip of your life. That's everything for this video. I hope that you found it useful and I hope that you can take these travel checklist points and utilize them on your next big backpacking trip to make it less stressful, to make it more organized, to make it more amazing. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to me. Again, I make videos on travel, fashion, and just lifestyle content, inspiring you to live your best life. I post videos every single Sunday at 11 a.m. so you know that you're gonna get good content from me every single week, okay? That's everything for this video and I will see you next week. Bye guys.
We're in trances, going all to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by, losing